The air in the lush, manicured gardens of the Limuru Country Club was thick with the scent of jasmine and unspoken rivalry. Amara Aviambo, radiant in a gown that had flown first class from Milan, was marrying Dr. Kian Muteshi, a man whose family wealth was as old and deep as the Rift Valley itself. But the chatter among the 500 guests wasn't about the seven-tiered cake or the imported champagne. It was about the seating chart. Amara had done the unthinkable. She had invited all three of her most significant ex-fiancés to sit at the same VIP table. There was Elias, the volatile, Nairobi-based abstract artist whose muse Amara had once been. Next to him sat Juma, the calculating tech mogul from Mombasa, known for his cold efficiency and ability to sniff out a weak investment. And finally, Tariq, the quiet, principled conservationist from Laikipia, the only man who had ever broken Amara's heart, a wound she never truly showed. Amara looked out over the crowded lawn, her eyes catching each of them in turn. Elias was already sweating, Juma was on his phone, and Tariq was staring intently at the white roses. Amara did not invite them for closure or spite. She invited them because she needed chaos. And these three men were the perfect volatile ingredients. The flawless wedding of the year had been constructed for one purpose: to be spectacularly destroyed. Amara simply wasn't going to be the one holding the match. She took Kian's hand, smiled a perfect, chilling smile for the cameras, and waited for the inevitable combustion.
Earlier that morning, Amara had sent him a cryptic text. Remember the Maida Creek sketches? Juma would hate what they really represent. The Maida Creek sketches were from the time she dated both of them, and they contained a subtle, encoded map to a piece of Elias's most valuable and technically unowned early work. But the message wasn't about art. It was about igniting the old, burning rivalry between the artist and the mogul. Elias had always been jealous of Juma's easy money, and Juma had always mocked Elias's lack of discipline. Elias excused himself to the bar, deliberately choosing a path that brought him near Juma. "Still building apps, Juma?" Elias sneered, adjusting his cufflink. "Some of us create things that last, not just digital trinkets." Juma didn't look up from his phone, a dismissive gesture that drove a spike into Elias's pride. The first domino was pushed. The energy was now electric, primed to spark, exactly as Amara had anticipated. The sun dipped lower over the distant Ngong Hills, painting the sky in dangerous shades of orange and red.
Juma hated weddings. He hated sentimentality, and he especially hated being manipulated. When Amara invited him, he immediately ran a full background check on Kian Muteshi, expecting to find the standard hidden debt or an embarrassing business failure. Kian was clean, too clean, and that was Juma's first clue that the real threat wasn't Kian, but Amara herself. She always played three-dimensional chess, and her goal was never what it appeared to be on the surface. He felt a cold satisfaction in seeing Elias's amateur attempt at provocation. Juma wouldn't stoop to a verbal spat with a struggling painter. However, an hour before the ceremony, Juma received an anonymous email titled "The Muteshi Mistake." It wasn't sent by Amara, but by an untraceable encrypted service. The email contained only a single, heavily redacted document concerning a massive land acquisition in Kilifi and a short video clip. The video showed Kian in a furious, secret argument with a stern-looking older woman who was demanding he relinquish a power of attorney. This was not financial scandal, but domestic entanglement, something far more humiliating for the Muteshi name. Juma realized Amara hadn't just invited him, she had armed him. She knew he wouldn't sit idly by. He was too competitive, too proud of his reputation as a fixer who always knew the score. Juma's instinct to dismantle the problem, Kian, was now fully activated. He slipped his phone into his pocket, his gaze meeting Amara's as she walked down the aisle. Her expression was serene, yet in her eyes, he recognized the fierce gleam of a gambler who had just pushed all her chips to the center of the table.
Tariq stood awkwardly by the bar, the only man there who still saw Amara as a girl, not a brand. The Laikipia dust still clung faintly to his shoes, a stark contrast to the polished marble floor. He hadn't brought a gift. He'd brought a desperate hope that this wedding wasn't real, that Amara would look at him and remember their shared, simpler dreams. She had approached him just after the exchange of vows, her hand lingering on his arm for a fraction too long, a gesture designed to destabilize him entirely. "I needed you here, Tariq," she'd whispered, her voice low enough that Kian, chatting nearby, couldn't hear. "You always understood what I was really fighting for." That single sentence, a calculated injection of nostalgia and false intimacy, was enough to reopen the old, festering wound. Tariq had walked away from her years ago, believing her ambition would swallow his world. Now he felt a crushing regret and a desperate need to save her from what he perceived as a mistake. Amara had done her homework. She knew Tariq's core weakness, his protective nature, and his intense aversion to hypocrisy and deceit. In his pocket, he held a sealed note he'd found tucked into his place card. It wasn't about Kian's secrets. It was about the legal terms of Amara's prenuptial agreement, which she made appear highly exploitative and degrading. She had framed it as a cry for help. Tariq now felt a righteous anger brewing, believing he had to interrupt the ceremony to protect the woman he still, foolishly, loved. His desire to intervene had been fully activated.
The reception hall was a vision of gold and white, overlooking Nairobi's twinkling night skyline. Dr. Kian Muteshi, beaming with a pride that bordered on self-congratulation, stood to give his toast. He spoke of Amara as his trophy wife, a beautiful ornament to his already perfect life. Amara smiled sweetly, taking a delicate sip of champagne, while the phrase landed like a heavy thud in the silence. Elias, the artist, clenched his jaw, remembering how Kian's condescension had always infuriated Amara. Juma, the mogul, frowned, recognizing Kian's entitlement as a systemic vulnerability. Tariq, the conservationist, saw only the cage of the Muteshi name tightening around Amara. Kian continued, "I know many of you have history with my beautiful bride, but tonight, that history is just background noise. She is mine now." Amara's eyes flickered to the VIP table. Elias, fueled by jealousy and the alcohol, had pulled out his phone, ready to fire off a series of scandalous, but ultimately distracting old photos of him and Amara. Juma, coolly assessing the threat, had the Muteshi mistake video queued up, ready to deploy the corporate scandal that would embarrass the family. Tariq, his conscience burning, clutched the prenup note, preparing to expose Kian's allegedly cruel intentions. The three X's, each operating on a different, powerful motive, jealousy, pride, and righteousness, were poised to strike. Amara had set the perfect trap, planting 3 distinct bombs, knowing that in their mutual competition, at least one was guaranteed to detonate and cause maximum damage.
The spark ignited, not with a word, but a movement. Elias, unable to stomach Kian's smug rhetoric, stood up abruptly, knocking over a crystal water pitcher. The crash drew all eyes. Juma seized the moment, seeing Elias's clumsy move as a distraction. He didn't want the wedding merely embarrassed, he wanted it dismantled swiftly. With 3 deft taps on his phone, he beamed the Muteshi mistake video directly onto the large projector screen behind Kian, hijacking the wedding's AV system. The image of the older, furious woman and Kian's frantic denials of the power of attorney request filled the hall. Silence shattered the illusion of perfection. Kian stared, aghast. Before anyone could process the scandal, the exposure of Kian's hidden, bitter legal feud with a powerful family matriarch over controlling a massive sugar plantation, Tariq reacted to Elias's crash.
Mistaking Elias's action for a misguided, drunken attack on Amara's honor, Tariq surged forward, shouting, "You won't ruin her again, Elias." Elias, already keyed up, swung wildly, and the two exes, the artist and the conservationist, devolved into a messy public brawl right next to the floral arrangement. The scene was pure, intoxicating chaos, a high society rumble in the foreground, Kian's financial and familial secrets blazing on the screen in the background. Amara watched it all unfold, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor of satisfaction running through her hand. She had achieved critical mass. The wedding was over, spectacularly and irrevocably ruined, and she was technically the victim.
The police arrived within minutes, mostly to escort the bruised Elias and Tariq off the premises. Kian, pale with rage and humiliation, was dragged away by his mother to deal with the immediate fallout of the video, which clearly exposed his deceitful maneuvering regarding the family trust and the plantation. Guests, alternately horrified and exhilarated, began to file out, their conversations already forming the basis of Nairobi's next year of gossip. Amara, however, did not shed a single tear, nor did she chase her disgraced fiancé. Instead, she calmly walked off the main veranda, carefully stepping over scattered rose petals and broken glass. She found a quiet bench overlooking the twinkling chaos. She took out her phone and sent a final, crucial text message. It read simply, "Target neutralized. The collateral is now free. Meet me at the Boma." This message was not addressed to any of the exes or to Kian. It was sent to a contact labeled Malaika. The true goal began to solidify. Amara never cared for Kian or his wealth. She cared about the vast, undeveloped wildlife corridor property his family owned, which was legally entangled by the very power of attorney Kian had been fighting for in the video. By exposing Kian, she had forced the family matriarch, the older woman in the clip, to seek a new, trustworthy partner to secure the land deal, a partner Amara had already courted. She had played the victim to become the unexpected victor of a high-value real estate skirmish. The Boma, a discreet luxury safari lodge near the city, was quiet and dimly lit. Amara, having changed out of her wrecked wedding dress and into a sophisticated white silk jumpsuit, sat waiting. The main entrance parted, and in walked Malaika, a sharp, impeccably dressed woman who was Kian's most ruthless competitor in the land development sector and the anonymous sender of the Muteshi mistake video. Amara rose and offered a genuine, victorious smile. "The chaos was beautiful," Malaika stated, pouring them both a glass of single malt whiskey. "My exes were very efficient," Amara replied, clinking glasses. "Their competitive fire made them do exactly what I needed, destroy Kian's credibility and force his family's hand. The Muteshi matriarch, seeing Kian publicly disgraced and untrustworthy, had already phoned her lawyer to sign over the management rights of the key Khalifi land asset, the exact piece of real estate Amara and Malaika had been trying to acquire for months, to Malaika's trusted holding company. Amara's meticulously planned wedding and its spectacular failure had been a diversionary tactic to facilitate a $50 million business transfer. The exes, each believing they were acting on their own motives, revenge, principle, or love, had simply been Amara's highly effective, if unwitting, tools of corporate sabotage. Amara had achieved her goal, not just freedom from a dull marriage, but the acquisition of an incredible asset, all while maintaining the flawless image of the poor, jilted bride who was just unlucky in love. She was free, wealthy, and scandalous, just as she had always intended.